Jackson had moved to a cabin deep within the forest, far from the nearest town. He wanted a quiet life, surrounded by nature. But he would soon discover that the forest held a dark secret. Near his cabin was an old, abandoned playground. The swings were rotten, the slide rusted, and it looked like no one had touched it in years. The townspeople said the park was cursed, but Jackson dismissed it as nothing more than a rumor. One night, he heard a creaking sound coming from the playground. There was no wind, yet an old swing was moving on its own. At first, Jackson thought it was just a coincidence. But as the nights went on, the sound became more frequent and louder. In the dead of night, the metallic shriek of the swing kept him awake. Soon, he thought he could hear someone calling him from the park whispers that made his skin crawl. One night, unable to stand it any longer, he went outside. Taking his flashlight, he walked toward the eerie playground. The swing swayed slowly. In the beam of his flashlight, he saw the silhouette of a little girl sitting on one of the swings. As Jackson approached, the girl suddenly vanished, leaving behind a mysterious necklace. The pendant had a rusty letter on it, E. As Jackson picked up the necklace, he looked up to see the little girl again, now sitting by the swing. She looked at him with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "Why didn't you come back, Daddy?" Those words made Jackson's blood run cold. She spoke as if she were one of the lost souls. Jackson dropped the necklace and stepped back, but he couldn't tear his gaze away from her sad, hollow eyes. The next morning, Jackson went to the town to ask about the girl. He heard a rumor about a young girl named Emily who had disappeared in that very playground years ago. Since then, the park had been seen as the center of a curse. Emily's father had set out to find her that night, but had never returned.
Jackson decided not to visit the park again, but it was already too late. That night, he awoke to the same whispers. Something was pulling him toward the playground. And there, by the swings, Emily waited for him. "Tonight, I want to play with you, Daddy," she said in a soft voice. Suddenly, a thick fog surrounded Jackson. He could barely see anything. Faint children's laughter echoed all around him. When the fog cleared, other ghostly children appeared around the park, all staring at Jackson and slowly moving toward him. Each child whispered the word, "Daddy," as they approached. Soon, they formed a circle around him, linking hands to trap him. The metallic scream of the swings grew louder and louder, piercing through the night. Jackson tried to run, but every time he thought he was nearing the exit, he found himself back at the same swing. It was as if there was no way out. Little Emily stood before him, a cold smile on her face, and said, "Daddy, we'll stay here together forever." Jackson's energy drained as his vision faded. The last thing he saw was Emily's smile and the other children behind her. By morning, the townspeople found a set of footprints leading into the park, but Jackson was never seen again. Since that day, the swing has never stopped moving, and anyone who approaches the park at night claims to hear Jackson's cries for help echoing through the darkness.